Hello and welcome to episode number 123 of the Board Game Barrage podcast, a podcast about board games, the latest hotness, and how to have fun with your friends, even when you're losing. I am Kellen, the red tank, and joined today are my special guests, the green and orange tank.
Hello. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
A little bone to pick, boys. We have a shared web presence as Board Game Barrage, and then you two have private web presences as yourself, where you interact with people on Twitter, etc., but I don't.
Well, as a massively successful internet figure, I sort of just have to maintain that front.
You have to give your public an outlet.
Yeah, exactly.
Or otherwise it'll be so pent up that it'll explode.
And so you're saying no one would message me on my own, which is why I have the main address. I don't get it. It's like Board Game Barrage responds to something, and then Neil and Niker responds to it. I'm like, who the hell is that guy? I thought he was part of Board Game Barrage.
Well, it's either that or we can have a conversation with all of us replying on the Board Game Barrage account, which would be spectacular.
So my word is law.
Fun little thing I noticed about the way I make decisions. If I go to the fridge and there are 2 boxes of Diet Cokes, one with cherry, one with ginger lime, and one's half full and one's almost full, which flavor does Neelan pick?
Almost full.
Almost full.
Almost full, because that maximizes my future choices. But it's actually a fallacy, because I'm just repeatedly picking the option until they equalize. It's pretty dumb, but it's definitely how
That's actually how I eat meals.
I feel like I do that for a lot of stuff, but it is kind of silly. It's like putting off actually making a choice until
a
I
stand.
have most options. Exactly.
No, because if you drank all the one that was limited and then you wanted to drink...
Well, that's exactly it. But here's the thing, though, Mark. What that means is I'm going to be drinking only cherry Coke until they equalize.
Right. No, I get it.
Equally
I get
dumb.
it.
Cherry Coke is obviously a superior choice to whatever the hell you just said, ginger lime.
Ginger lime. Oh, it's so good. It barely tastes like Coke.
I like ginger.
It has 2 bad things going for it. Are you ready for them? Number 1. What do you think number 1 is?
Ginger.
Nope, number 1 is lime.
Oh,
Number 2, what do you think number 2 is?
Coke.
Ginger.
Damn.
Neil, and I don't know how
I
you could get
missed
both
that
of
both
those.
times.
Yeah. Today, on episode number 123 of the... Well, I already told you that it was 123. 123 is a good number, right?
Yeah,
it's sort
it
of
is,
like
For sure.
It's one of the best 3-digit numbers.
the start of all passwords on the computer.
Start my passwords.
Yeah, exactly. You just add a 4 and a 5, and you're there. Yeah, you're in. Today on the Board Game Barrage podcast, we are going to be telling you about our favorite filler games, but we are going to be doing it in a new, fun, inventive, completely original way. We did not steal this from Order from Chaos. We did not steal this from any of our friends around the internet. We came up with this 1v1 Final Destination in Melee.
Pure invention. It sprang from my brain fully formed. Like Athena from Zeus'
Your brain?
Yeah.
Excuse me?
You also keep saying Final Destination. Is that the right reference?
Yeah, you don't get it.
No.
It's a stage in Super Smash Brothers, and it's the
I thought you
flat
were talking about
one.
the movie.
It's the flat one that they run all tournaments on.
I got it.
And so if someone offends you online, and they're like, my EP is bigger than yours, then what you do is you challenge them to, let's 1v1, Fox only, Final Destination, no items. That's how you prove.
Okay.
I don't understand, Mark. I'm teaching you facts.
No, I'm learning a lot. I'm learning a whole lot.
That's good. I see you taking notes.
Yeah.
But before we get to that very special, very, very special quarantine episode where we came up with a new idea for you, we're going to tell you about the games that we played this week. And we are going to start with our awkward but lovable orange tank.
Hello.
Gangly.
Gangly.
You're not gangly, but
Yeah, I was going to say.
I couldn't think of more words. Awkward, mumbling, bumbling, fumbling, kneeling.
Yeah, lots of umblings, tumbling. What I have played this week was something that Woggers from our Discord sort of threw out as me as something that he wants to hear me talking about. So I mentioned that I'd been playing a little bit of Aerion a couple of weeks ago. And so I took the opportunity to sort of dive fully back into it. Also a little bit inspired from having seen it on Shut Up and Sit Down again. So Aerion is a game that's in the Onirim universe. It is a solo game that has the same beautiful watercolor art. It looks like something straight out of a children's book. It's a very beautiful game. It's based
like something children would do.
Yeah, exactly. This is for this game clearly designed for children that I've been playing. It's basically a push your luck game of rolling dice and finding the best card that you can purchase with the dice that you've rolled. If you can't purchase one of the cards in the array, you can discard a card in order to re-roll some of those dice, Yahtzee style. But you have a limited number of opportunities because there are only 6 of these cards in the array. So you're sort of giving up cards, and those cards are sort of given up semi-permanently because there are very few opportunities to get them back in order to maybe re-roll to build towards a specific card that you're aiming for. You're doing this to sort of collect sets of cards which you do use to build airships. And once you've built all of the airships, then you've won the scenario. So I spoke about this some time ago, maybe a year ago. And what I've been doing is, because it's been so long that since I played it, I sort of just reset because I didn't remember what any of the expansions did. Because one of the things that's quite cool about the box is it just includes 6 mini modular expansions. So I've just been working my way through them again. What's been kind of cool about doing that is I'm almost bringing like my knowledge I have about from what I had from when I played it last, but just sort of resetting the rules overhead. So I didn't have to like jump in with like all of the expansions and all of the rules overhead. It's been really, really cool to return to. In fact, after the first time I broke this out, I just kept playing it. I played it twice more, like straight away. I left it laid out so I could just keep returning it to a table like over and over again in the subsequent days. I've basically played now back through the first 4 expansions, which is roughly where I left off when I played last time. So I still have 2 whole new expansions that I've not seen yet to get to. And I think that I still feel like as strong about it as I did before. Like, I think it's a game that is just so simple to explain, but quite good in its decisions. Like, it is a game where you are going to be frustrated by the dice throws some of the time, but the crucial decision of, do I want to give up this card that I might need down the line at the chance that I'll be able to get it back in order to sort of re-roll? It's just so good every single time you make that call.
Is the fun the expansions, though?
I would say that the base game itself would get stale on its own, maybe, but I do think that the fun is in mixing and matching the expansions, certainly, because one of the things that's great about them is it's not just pick an expansion and go with it. They're fully modular. So I now play with a combination of, one of the expansions that I like a lot is this one, I think it's called the Hourglasses, where if one of these cards comes up, you have to grab it immediately or it disappears. So it gives you like this little forced time pressure. And I now sort of always play with that one, even as I'm rolling in the other expansions. I sort of will sometimes add an expansion, try and be like, okay, I don't love this one enough to keep doing it. And they just keep layering on some of them. I want to maybe get to the point where I don't know if this is viable, where you play the game with all of them. That would kind of be crazy. But there's a lot of room to sort of play around with there, because there's also different ways to modify the difficulty for each of those expansions. So there's like basically an insane number of different variables in how you could tweak it.
Is there an idea that one combination is like the final level or like the most difficult setting?
No, not really. It doesn't really give you any sort of overarching recommendations for how to combine the expansions even. It just sort of says, here's the base rules, expansion 1, expansion 2, expansion 3, and then for each of those, a little bit of a harder modifier.
Right.
They found that with children, giving them strict rules kind of doesn't help their minds develop.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you leave it open-ended and then it's a curiosity,
For the children.
Yeah, so
it gives their little feeble minds that room to explore, which is exactly what I've been going for.
he hasn't gotten to the Play-Doh expansion that's coming soon.
That's next week. But yeah, that is Aerion. It's a game that you can play in half an hour. I'm going to keep playing it. It seems to be, of all the solo games I've played so far, the one I want to keep returning to.
That's got to be good, too, for the end of the night when you're tired after having worked a bunch, in quarantine especially, right? Because it's such a cute little box and it's not hard to set up. I just find that I've been burned at the end of the night and just don't want to play something heavy
totally
right now.
I mean, I've had the exact same thing. And it's also light enough that I can also do it while I'm watching TV or YouTube. So I can like have something on in the background while I'm playing the game. It's not taxing enough that it requires my full attention. I think it's quite good.
That's how I watch all of We're Not Wizards videos and podcasts. Like, I got to be doing something else while I'm doing it. All right. Well, I played 2 games this week with Christina, and the first one was Dr. Reiner Knizia's Ingenious, the fantastic tile-laying game that I traditionally prefer to play as a 4-player team game. That's actually my favorite way to play it, but we played it as a 2-person game. Christina got very frustrated about halfway through the game when she realized that the one resource she needed was going to be very hard to get. In Ingenious, you use the scoring where only your worst score of 6 different scores counts, and one of the colors and shapes got blocked off, and so I had one more than her. And so the entire rest of the second half of the game was her trying to establish that shape again and then me blocking it.
Right.
And I think that there was a point where we could have called the game because it probably just wasn't possible for her to do it. It had worked out so well, but we're relative novices at the game. And so we played it all out. And so that was a little frustrating, I think, for her. But Ingenious is a really, really solid game that I enjoy getting out every time. But the main game that Christina and I played that I wanted to talk about is a review copy that we got sent of 100 Torii. This is a beautiful, absolutely beautiful game about the Torii gates in Japan. 100 Torii is a tile-laying game where you are trying to make paths between different icons and have them go underneath Torii gates. And the more red Torii gates that they go under, the more of that resource type that you acquire. The more blue Torii gates that you go through on each path, you get to choose any of the other resources to acquire. So the game is all about strategic placement of these roads that have the Torii gates on them as they make their way back to the center of the board. It is a very pedestrian game. Everything you do scores you a lot of points. You know, if you're the first to do something, you're going to get 5 points. And then if you're the second to do something, you're going to get 3 points. Everyone is getting points. Everything you do gets you points. It is not for me. It's definitely more of a family weight thing. It is absolutely gorgeous. It's this Japanese garden. There are unique character abilities that you're using. It is fun to look at and fun to set up. This was novel for a couple reasons. One, Christina and I have long had the argument, of which we have many, that she has never taught me to play a game. So this was officially the first game she ever read the rule book for and then taught me how to play it. Uh-oh. It's true. What do you mean it's not true?
It's a flat-out lie, and Neelan and Mark know it.
It's a flat-out... What do you mean it's a lie? You're not in this episode.
I heard that.
What?
You think I don't hear my name? That perked my ears up.
What game have you taught me?
Just because I don't teach you games doesn't mean that I don't teach
Who are you playing games?
We've been over this. I'm done arguing about it, and you're wrong.
Okay, but you don't want me to keep this up here?
I want you to tell the truth.
She wants me to tell the truth, which is I cannot recall a time that she has ever taught a game or learned a rulebook. I think it's interesting for me with 100 Torii because I can see who it might be for. A, someone who's interested in Japan. B, someone who wants a family weight game or a game for maybe younger players. But I also struggle with whether it's even pertinent to cover on the podcast because it's not something that I personally can recommend. And so I sit here thinking, actually, I think about President Bartlett from The West Wing when he says, what is the value of a proportional response? Which has nothing to do with this. But I do just wonder, you know, I love it when we have a game like Mini Express where I can get on the mic and say, wow, 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 you should check this out, you know? And I don't want to be known as someone who is only propagating the things that we love, but with a game like this, it isn't for me one that I would really recommend, but I did play it, and it happened this week, and Christina read her first rule book. She said it was fun to read, Neelan, and I think she was just trying to annoy me. But that is 100 Torii. Mark, what do you got for us?
Well, we all just wrapped up a game of Taluva. Taluva is a game from all the way back in 2006, although I think a couple of years ago a new version came out. I think even a deluxe version came out along with that new version. Anyway, Taluva is an abstract tile-laying game where you have 3 types of buildings that you're trying to get out on the board. Once you exhaust 2 of the 3 supplies of buildings, you've won the game. So that's what you're trying to do, exhaust 2 of the supplies of buildings. So you've got 3 types of buildings. You've got huts, you've got temples, and you've got towers. And the way play works is on your turn, you'll have a tile, and you're going to play the tile. And you're playing it to either expand the island that you're sort of all building together, or you're causing volcanoes to erupt and raising the height of the island. So every tile has a volcano icon and 2 other types of terrain. And you can either place that tile anytime you want to extend the island by just placing it alongside the pre-existing island, or you can line up with some constraints. You can line up any volcano tile already present on the island with the volcano tile on the tile you want to lay down. There are some restrictions in terms of how you do that, but that's how you basically raise the level of the island. Once you do that, after you've placed your tile, you must build. And you build in one of three ways. So the easiest way to build is to build a new hut, which is the most plentiful type of building you have. And you can place a new hut wherever you want. Whenever you place a hut by itself, it's called a settlement. But the other way that you place huts is to expand from any current hut you have. So if you have a hut and you want to place more huts to expand that settlement, you can do so by expanding into any one type of terrain. So if you've got a hut and it's surrounded on two sides by, say, sand tiles, you can say, I'm expanding into sand, and you place one hut on each of the sand tiles. The other type of building you can place is a temple. So temples, you have 3 of them. You have 20 of the huts. So those are the hardest ones to get rid of, but they're the easiest ones to place on the board. The temples, you've only got 3 of them, but the way you place them is that if you have a settlement that has 3 huts that are touching each other, on the next time you build, you can place one of the temples out. And if you place 3 of the temples out, you've exhausted that pile. You're one half of the way through exhausting piles. Finally, the last...
You're one half of the way to winning.
To winning, that's right. Yes, the exhausting piles and winning the game. Correct, thank you. And finally, there's a tower. The way you build a tower is if you have a settlement, if you have any group of buildings adjacent to a part of the island that is 3 levels high, you can place a tower, and there's only 2 towers, so you're halfway through getting rid of all your towers, and then, again, a step closer to winning the game. There are interesting rules that make this more difficult and add to the strategy involved in the game. The biggest one, I think, being that any group of buildings that you have can only have a maximum of 1 temple and 1 tower. So that makes it so that you can't just have one array of buildings and build a number of towers or a number of temples. You always have to find a way, either by placing a single hut somewhere else on the island, or the other way you can take a combined set of huts and make them into 2 separate settlements is to place a volcano and sort of split your huts. So you may have an array of, say, 10 huts that are all connected, and because they're all connected, you can only pay 1 tower and 1 temple. But if you place a volcano right in the middle and you split that one collection of huts into 2 collections, now you have 2 opportunities to place towers and temples. So there's a number of interesting ways that the rules connect together to lend to strategic and tactical thinking. This was the first time I played this game, but I really, really enjoyed it. It's felt like, again, one of these old classic games, and it's certainly an abstract game, but I think the veneer of this island building and volcano sort of works perfectly alongside the rules to make it a great experience. I really enjoyed it. What do you guys think?
I think right off the bat, I want to say that my temptation when someone says the word abstract to me is to imagine something that's just very dry looking. But much like Santorini, which we spoke about last week, this is a beautiful game. We played this on Board Game Arena, which had a 3D interface where you could spin it around and look at it. And by the end of it, it still looks like this really gorgeous construction. I've seen photos of it since we played it, and it's so pretty. Once you sort of have this island that's in multiple layers with little peaks and valleys and buildings and towers spread all over it. It's really, really beautiful. That alone, combined with how solid the game felt to me, it had me looking this up almost immediately as something I wanted to own. I think that the core decisions that you described of, if you have one mass of huts in a central spot, there's not a lot you can do with that, because in order to place the temples and the towers, you actually need to have disparate settlements. So it's about finding ways to sort of create little offshoots, split them down the middle with volcanoes. And even placement of volcanoes is so precise because you have to have enough space for them. You have to have the right sort of, arrangement of stuff that you can, in order to be able to lay them. So there's just a lot you have to do to set yourself up to be able to do these big moves, like placing a tower or placing a temple. I really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was super solid.
It has this feeling of looking around at what everyone else is close to getting and constantly trying to reevaluate. Oh no, Mark is down to 7 huts and he's already fulfilled one of the other win conditions. So we got to do something about that. We got to do something about that. I think that this is a game that I had, I think, over 10 years ago at this point, and sold back when I was in New York City, which has the best pizza in the world. And I think that it's a triumph of game design that's just not for me. I think it does a lot of things that I really like. I think, for example, one of the things that makes it quite unique is that you actually only have one tile with which to play. And so many other games like this would give you a couple of different options and you'd be looking for the best piece. But this game restricts you and says at the end of your turn, you draw a tile. And then you have a whole turn of just hoping that that one spot you want to put it stays there, and it almost never does. And then you're making a very tactical decision. You still have a lot of decisions, a lot of places it can go, a lot of things it can go on top of, that the luck of that isn't too damning, but it is a factor in how you approach the game. And I think that that's very smart. But it is a game that you grapple with the placement rules of everything almost as much as you're grappling with the other players. I think that back then I was a board game newbie and I had a harder time internalizing those systems and gave it up. I enjoyed my play of Taluva much more today when we returned to it. And the reason that I suggested it is because to me it's very cutthroat, so it fits into Mark, and it's very puzzly, so it fits into Neelan. Like I actually could see this being on both of your top 50s, not necessarily based on that play that we just had, but just as a design. And so for me, I was able to grapple and internalize those systems and where things could be placed and why and what could be covered up better now. And I got past that and got to the things that I do like, which is dealing with you guys and trying to block and unblock. I think Christina struggled. It's a weird one. I'd be interested to hear how many people could grasp what the game was about based on our description here, because I don't know. It has a small rule book, but somehow it's still like,
yeah, for sure.
It's hard to wrap it around your head because it is abstracted, but it's quite a unique one. You see it a lot on people's hidden gems. You know, this is one of my favorite games that no one talks about, Taluva. It's got a good rating on Board Game Geek. It is beautiful to look at. So I think you'll know if this is interesting to you, and you should definitely check it out on Board Game Arena, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that is Taluva.
Taluva. We are going to be doing a voicemail Q&A episode with listeners of the Board Game Barrage podcast. So if you want to have your question played live on the show, you can leave us a voicemail at boardgamebarrage.com/voicemail. So if you go to that site, we'll have a redirect where you can leave us a direct voice message and we will play it on the show and react live. It'll be so much fun.
Keep them quick, keep them poppy.
Yeah. If you send us a voicemail that is over a minute long, you will be subject to the Mark editing power. He'll edit you, and he'll make you sound dumb. So don't do it. Leave a small, little, cute question, comment, concern, feedback, as long as it's positive. All right. So let us get to our new feature, our As Untitled feature, where we are going to be telling you about the best filler games in all of board gaming. We have no name for this yet. I want to call it the Ranked Duel, but Mark says that's not good for branding.
It's not branded enough.
What do you mean? With the Board Game Barrage TM?
Battle of the Boards.
TM?
Board Game Barrage, Battle of the Boards. You got to keep it B.
So what do we own in that? The boards? We own boards? We own the battle? Like what part of that has anything to do with...
What do you mean what part do we
Battle
own
of the
Board
Boards?
Game Barrage, Battle of the Boards? The barrage part.
That's a very long title. Do you understand how...
Yeah, but then people will shorten it on the internet to BGBOB or something like that. See? It's easy.
Out
BG
of
Bob.
home
Yeah,
boards.
BG Bob. It even has like a personification.
Out of home boards is 4 words or less. Do you understand?
Out of home boards? What?
Yeah, like a billboard. Have you ever put one up? I have. Hundreds. So we are going to be ranking our favorite filler games. This was originally slated to be a normal top 5 episode of the Board Game Barrage podcast, but things get weird. Things get weird in quarantine. We're not on our A game right now, or some of us aren't.
Stick to yourself.
Mark is on his A game, but the rest of us... It's like I went outside for the first time in 3 weeks. I looked up and my eyes got big. I forgot how to drive. So the first thing that we need to do is establish the rules of the game. We will be using the Pub
Have
Meeple
Christina come here to read the real book.
That is true. She's good at reading rules now after that one time. That's what Mark said. Don't put...
No, I wanted to tell Neelan I love reading rule books.
That's what
No.
Kellen tells me. I'm glad you're on the same page.
It was fun. I chose to read it instead of my book.
Totally. That's now you get it.
In my defense,
What did he say?
he didn't say anything to you. He was talking to me. In my defense, this rule book has 4 pages of Japanese culture and history. So that was the part that she liked reading.
actually left that part for you.
So we're going to be using the Pub Meeple ranking engine to rank 1v1. We each submitted a list of our favorite filler games. And they are going to be appearing on screen, and we are going to be going 1v1 and choosing collectively on which of those games we prefer. If 2 out of 3 of us agree, we click it and we move on. So that's all we're looking for is consensus by 2/3 majority.
We should say like lock it in or something like
It's
because
locked.
like
It's locked. Yeah.
yeah, it's
Lock
locked.
it in.
Locked and loaded.
Yeah. That relates to BGBOBOB of the boards, like
BG Bob.
thematically.
That's right. That's what
BG
said.
Bob ranked duel. We will have 1 minute per vote. So that timer will be going on Jeopardy style. I am the arbiter of this episode, so I have final say, obviously, and in all future Ranked Duel BGBOB sub-productions, as it was my idea. But no, so we don't know all the games that are in here. At the end of it, we'll have what Pub Meeple does is you do a series of 1 versus 1s, and then at the end, you rank your collection. It is a unique way that many people rank their board game collections to try to say, which would I rather play? And then at the end, we'll have a list of the best filler games according to Board Game Barrage, and we will have fought all the way there. Right?
That's right. Do we want to say fire away instead of lock it in?
Christ, where did you go to night school? Become a marketer? I don't like. What is happening to you?
No, but seriously, I think there's fire
Fire away?
Yeah.
You two say fire away, Captain, to me?
No. Whatever. Instead of lock it in, like you could say, yeah, I think I'm going to lean
Yeah.
towards ABC, but you're not locked in until you say fire away. But lock it in sounds like it's like been done so many times. It's some game show when they say lock it in. Oh, it's like
Yeah.
Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
I'll fire away, whatever.
Okay.
When you are ready to move on, you are firing away your answer. What? This doesn't work.
When you want to lock in your answer, you
Yeah.
say fire away. There's no turning back from a fire away.
Right. You
Okay,
stop talking.
yes.
You cannot change your answer once you say fire
Okay.
away.
Once you've locked in your answer and said fire away, you are locked in. You cannot change your answer. You get to have an opinion even if you've never played the game.
Absolutely, for sure.
1,000,000%.
Yeah.
And we all don't know all the games that are in this list, right? So this was blind. I now have the first one up here on my screen.
Here he goes.
But before we get to that, let's briefly talk about what a filler game is. For me, filler game is synonymous with appetizers. Appetizers come before the main course. You enjoy them. They are fun. They have unique and interesting systems and mechanisms, but you don't ever leave an appetizer thinking, I'm done with dinner. That is how I define filler games and scene.
The way I did filler was much more mathematical. For me, filler games were anything that was 60 minutes or under, and I kept it to games that played no more than 4 players, because I felt like anything over 4, I mean, 5 was sort of like a gray area, but just in terms of cutting this list down, it was anything that was 60 minutes or under, played a maximum of 4, because I felt like anything more than 4 was verging on party game mostly, and also mid-weight or less. That was my criteria.
Yeah, I think that more than 4 criterion is interesting because for me, it was like, okay, I'm just not going to include party games. I wanted them to feel like they had like a veneer of strategy to them, but lighter, on the lighter end, right?
Yeah.
I feel like I sort of skewed closer to like the 30, 45 minute maximum. But yeah, I also excluded party games and that's about it.
I mean, the traditional definition is something that fills time while you're waiting for people to get to game night or in between bigger games, but it's never the main course to bring it back to food.
I think it's also important to say that there's nothing that's like derisive about this term. These are all great games. I mean, it's not to say that these are games.
They're
Oh,
very
that's just a
great
filler game. Like these are all great games. Like there's a specific time and a place for them, as like Kellen sort of laid out.
Some of these games will be very, very great games.
Yeah, I have a feeling, Mark, that if that was actually your criteria, that there's going to be some that I'm just not going to agree with you, and we may have some small problem.
Yeah, go for
But
it.
just by definition,
What is your...
like a game that's 55 minutes long is not a filler game, in my opinion.
But a game that 45 is?
Almost not, in my opinion.
Okay.
But I mean, what is 45 minutes?
Yeah,
What rounds
sure.
are you playing?
Let's get into it.
All right, here we go. The first ever Ranked Duel, Board Game Barrage, Battle of the Boards, BGOB, Final Destination, 2 stock, no items, Falco only, because Falco's better than Fox. Here we go. None of that could be good.
Yeah.
I am starting the 1 minute countdown now with our first pair off, which is Istanbul versus Coloretto. All right. Coloretto is a fantastic filler game where you are getting chameleons and you are putting them in different hops, and then you have to choose when to stop pushing your luck and take a hop. It is a quintessential filler game. Who wants to defend Istanbul? Because someone's got to.
I really like Istanbul. Istanbul is a game where it's on the shelf. It doesn't really jump out at me ever, but whenever I play it, it just feels super pleasant. But the level of choices you have to make and the unique action of moving your pile of tokens around and dropping one off, that's a clever mechanic and something I always enjoy. And I also like the expansions. I think the expansions work well for it. So I think I would side with you on Coloretto on this one, but I do like Istanbul quite a bit.
I think we're going to have a three-way consensus because I like Istanbul, but Coloretto was this close to being on my list, so I think it's
Coloretto.
Coloretto, fire away.
Fire away. A better filler game than Istanbul. All right, we are up for the second round, which is Arboretum versus Shards of Infinity.
Arboretum.
This is tough. Arboretum was also very close to being on my list. So Shards of Infinity was one I threw in there. This is probably my favorite dueling deck builder that is not necessarily exclusively two-player. Like Chronicles would get that edge, but I don't think it plays that well beyond two. Shards plays so fast. It's kind of in that Star Realms, Ascension realm of just like play a card from the way, build your deck, and just do damage to people. And it's quick and it's easy and it's fun.
But is a CCG dueler like Omen or Magic or any of these? Are those filler games to you?
I mean,
These
I think no,
1v1
I wouldn't
battler?
put Magic in this category for sure. But like Shards, I think has a simple enough rule set and plays very, very quickly.
Arboretum plays well from 2 to 4. It's got a ton of meat on it. Every decision is fantastic, and you make a ton of them in the game. Arboretum is the winner, hands down. Fire away,
There's
Arboretum.
no way. Yeah, fire away on Arboretum.
Okay, I'm not mad. Like I said, Arboretum was
Well,
close.
we beat you.
Well, where are you firing?
Arboretum.
What's your
fire away?
Okay, all right.
Well, we're all locked in. All right, here we go. Oh, gee. Wow. Things are about to get spicy here as No Thanks battles it out with Biblios in round 3.
Okay.
Ready, go.
No Thanks is great, but it is not the king of the fillers, which Biblios is.
No Thanks
is great.
Amazing.
It is amazing, but come on now.
As
Come
a
on.
filler, what do you think you could get
It's
your
a deck
father
of
to
cards
play?
and 30
Biblios?
tiddlywinks.
Is he religious? Because then he might like Biblios. No Thanks, anyone can play.
Yeah.
No Thanks is a better... Your Biblios is about to get...
I think it is. Biblios,
You
I think
think
it's
it's-
specific. No Thanks is so good to break out with almost anyone. It's like, again, it's so good and so satisfying for how simple it is.
It's a deck of cards and 90 tiddlywinks.
Yet it's about to beat
What is
Biblios.
Biblios?
No Thanks,
It's
fire
a bunch
away.
of pictures of monks.
You didn't No Thanks,
it's
fire away?
done.
Oh my
No
God.
Thanks, fire away. Biblios
Oh.
is dead.
We have just ruined our reputation in one stroke.
Killed the podcast. All right, moving on to Splendor versus For Sale as the best filler game. Which is a better filler game?
Oh,
guys?
this is interesting. I put both of these in. I'm inclined to say Splendor can't be killed. Splendor is a game of acquiring gems in order to get more cards, to get more gems. It's a very simple engine builder. I've successfully taught this to my mom. It's a very easy to teach game. For Sale is also incredibly easy to teach, and again, in that no thanks realm of just being so good for how simple it is. I think, oh man, if I had to pick, I think Splendor edges it out for me.
So I think that Splendor might be a better game, but I think For Sale is a better filler game. So how do I
see
vote
that?
here,
That's
friend?
yeah.
You vote filler. And I think, just to take it back one vote, as you might have guessed I would,
no.
I don't know what this ease of play is. We're not talking about the easiest. This is like filler. This is like an actual filler game. So just...
Ease of play? What are you talking about?
It's
Neelan is talking
pleasant.
about how easy it is
But-
to teach this.
But I just mean that it's like you can, it like literally fills time in any context, right? You can break it out and get going in like a very short amount of time.
You were describing the Istanbul expansions earlier, Mark, and I was like, that doesn't even make a filler game. You've got like a box with 17 expansions in there and you're pulling them out for grandma?
Why is grandma involved in this? Why is
Because
everyone
we're
bringing
talking about
grandma
filler
into this?
games. Yeah, what do you mean? Talking about grandma.
I don't think
People
that's
love grandmas.
a one-to-one.
Filler is short
For
game. It's not-
appetizers.
Yeah, but we're not putting them through a blender for grandma. Like,
I don't understand, Mark. Are you anti-family?
if
Do you
it's going
wish
to hurt
that you-
Biblios, then I am. What?
I'm going to go ahead and fire away on For Sale, so I just need someone to hop on this train.
This is a tough call. Better filler game. I think I would rather play For Sale, so I'm going to fire away For
Ooh,
Sale.
well, I'm going to fire away on Splendor, but I think that loses it.
No, stop talking. It's over. All right. The next one, this is going to be good. The Only True and Living Doctors, Blue Lagoon. Faces off against Japan's favorite indie publisher, Oink Games, and Startups.
Ooh,
as
these are
a
two
better filler game.
very good
So Startups is a small box game from Oink Games where you are investing in competing companies. When you're trying to hide in your hand which company you actually care about investing in, at the end of the game, you only have to pay out companies that you are invested in but don't have the majority of. So it's a very painful, tense, small filler game.
Blue Lagoon is a route building game, Go-esque route building game as it's often referred to, also like Through the Desert, where you're trying to build paths to pick up resources that'll score you points and also cut off your opponent's ability to get across the islands. I put up a Blue Lagoon. I like Startups a lot. I think I'm going to vote for Blue Lagoon. Fire away on this one.
All right. Before, you didn't let anyone argue, so your
arguments have been invalidated by your previous arguments.
Shooting before you fire, Mark, just like your normal life and everything you do, every choice you've ever made. To me, this is the quintessential disagreement. I consider Blue Lagoon not a filler.
And I agree, because I actually would have put it on my list too if I had thought it was a filler.
And the rationale, right, is even if it fits the length criteria and the people criteria, if you told me and texted me and said, hey, 9 p.m. tonight, we're going to play Blue Lagoon, I would jump in and be excited about that. That would be all we would have to do. Right. And so that doesn't, it's not like the appetizer that gets me into game night. It's like, it's the meal. It's substantial for me.
So for me, another visualization is I'm thinking of like, I get to your place and we're waiting for Nealon to show up and do you want to play something real quick? And I could see us playing Blue Lagoon as like a substantial but not event game that we played while either we were setting up another game or waiting for somebody else to play.
But halfway through your visualization, we would text Nealon and say, don't bother showing up.
Right.
Because we're already at the main course.
Fire away, Startups, easy vote.
I hate to say it, but if Blue Lagoon qualifies, it's my pick. Fire away on Blue Lagoon.
No.
Boom.
You said it didn't qualify.
I said if it qualifies. Like, I mean,
move it on.
You're saying that his argument...
I know. Exactly. I feel like I'm swayed by the argument that, you could break this out into two-player scenario.
I'm the clicker. What are you guys... This is a mutiny.
Fire away has happened.
Oh, my God. All right, here we go. We have Zany Penguins in one quarter competing against the game. Not the mind, but the game.
So I put Zany Penguins up there. Zany Penguins is like Arboretum, like Biblios, games where you have excruciating decisions to make, where you have to pass cards to your opponents. You don't want to. It's just my favorite type of game.
So the game came before the mind and has some similar elements where you are building piles of ascending and descending cards, but you can't communicate with the people that you're playing it with. Lots of laughs, lots of silliness. Probably edges close to a party game in this definition, though it's definitely not a game that you would pull out at a traditional party. I really like the game, and I submitted it here, but I could be convinced for Zany Penguins. I feel like it's one we all need to play a whole lot more of.
Yeah.
I think I'm falling on the game on this. Like, Zany Penguins is great, and I like that decision of being forced to pass it to someone is the best thing about Zany Penguins, but I didn't think it was amazing in the one time I played it. Whereas the game, I think, is fantastic. It's a very smart co-op game. Fire away on the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is actually a tough one, too. I definitely much rather play Zany Penguins, so I'm going to pick that as my fire away, but the appeal...
Ease of play? Are you about to say it for Grandma?
Well, no. It's not about the ease of teaching. It's just, it's a softer game than Zany Penguins. Zany Penguins is like much more brutal and much more tension filled. And so
I'm going to shut you up by firing away on Zany Penguins.
Boom. Love it. I'll take it.
All right, here we go. The next round, in one corner is 6 Nimmt, the chaotic, almost party card game. And in the other corner is the boring roll and write, twice as clever. 6 Nimmt is a fantastic game where everyone plays the card simultaneously, but you don't get to choose which hop it goes into, and you may really, 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 really not want it to go into one of the hops, but as things are revealed, this actually breaks Mark's rule about being more than 4 players. I think most people prefer it at 4 or 5, but I think it's definitely a filler game. Calling it a party game is a stretch.
Yeah. I think that's fair.
Yeah.
And Neelan, why don't you give us a boring, unhelpful summary of Twice as Clever?
Twice as Clever has very quickly become my favorite roll and write. It's a game that has very cool, very excruciating decisions, and it actually has a lot of interactivity in that roll and write space. Like, as you're rolling the dice, like the decisions of what you're picking is limited by what the other player picks. So there's like some sort of, okay, if I pick this, then I'm not going to give access to these dice to other players, which is just a fun decision of itself. I think the puzzle of sort of how to order stuff around the board is just super, super duper satisfying. I love Twice as Clever, and it's becoming one of my favorite games in this weight. Whereas Six Nimmt, honestly, like, I could take it or leave it. I think it's fun, but
I think that if you think filler games are synonymous with boring, then you should vote for Twice as Clever. Fire away, Six Nimmt.
Fire away, Twice as Clever. Not even a discussion.
And it's me to decide. I will say that I am not excited at the prospect of playing Twice as Clever, and I do get excited playing Six Nimmt. So I'm going to
Boom.
fire away.
It's over. Done. Moving on, we have our first returnee back to the ring, Coloretto, facing off against the boring, almost roll and write game, Karuba.
Karuba is so good. Karuba is...
No, it's not.
It is. It's like, I guess, yeah, the almost roll and write is fun because, like, everyone has the same action that they're bouncing off of, but that decision, like, sort of starts to sort of diverge very, very quickly. So everyone has the same input, but produces drastically different outputs in terms of how they're moving out of their map, getting towards treasure. You're building these paths. It's like a race game. It's a very simple race game where you call a tile and everyone gets to place it simultaneously. I mean, Coloretto is fantastic. Don't get me wrong, but God, I love Karuba.
I don't mind Karuba, but fire away, Coloretto. Chameleon for life.
Oh, this is so hard because I love Coloretto too. And if I knew you weren't going to submit it, I probably would have put it on my list as well.
Neelan, I can do this with you.
Fire away. Wait, you want to do this with me? You want to go down Karuba?
No, you don't, Mark. What are you making an alliance?
Fire
here?
away Karuba. Mark, take us home.
You know Coloretto's better.
I do like Karuba a lot. I do like Karuba.
Okay. Did we
Go
not
ahead.
define the rule that you have to be honest here and you can't do something?
We did not
just
define that
to
rule,
piss me
first of
off?
all.
That's a rule.
What?
That's the first rule of
That
this
wasn't in
game.
the rundown.
Take it seriously.
We could play
Mark,
the back, but it was not in the
I'm
rundown.
going to push pause because we have to hash this out.
Okay.
Take it seriously.
What did Biblios
Fire away,
do, first of all?
Coloretto. Fire
We're
away,
being honest here?
Coloretto. Do it.
Mark, do it. You know you want to.
Karuba or Coloretto? What am I?
This is
what
going
am
to
I
work
more
out in your
excited for?
favor in the long run. You know it.
We're already making alliances?
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm going to say Coloretto for the way, but it's
Boom.
it's
Done.
close. All right.
All right, here we go. Now we have our first returnees. Both of these games previously are losers. They're in the loser bracket here at the Board Game Barrage Ranked Duel of Death. What is it called? I don't know. Istanbul versus Karuba.
Ooh, this is good. Yeah, I think Karuba, I mean, edges it out for me. Like, Istanbul, I don't know. I don't think of Istanbul as a game that I would want to play in this space, honestly. I like Istanbul, but I don't know.
The thing with Istanbul is you don't think you want to play it in the space, but when you get into the space, you enjoy yourself. That's my argument. Istanbul is just, I don't ever get excited to play it until I'm halfway through playing it. And I'm like, wow, this is a really fun game. But it's close.
This feels like choosing between filling my time with board game nerd friends or filling my time with family, right? Because I would not play Istanbul with 17 expansions with my family, but I would play Karuba, fire away.
Family comes first. Fire away, Karuba.
Family first. That's always been the most important thing for everyone here but Mark. All right, here we go. No Thanks in one corner versus Arboretum.
Oh my God. I swear to God.
Tough.
No thanks. If it no
Are you
thanks.
kidding? Oh, you're upset that we're about to kill Arboretum and fire away on
up
No
to-
Thanks, the classic
Oh
game?
my
Oh, these are your 1 and 2, huh?
I mean,
We know they're not
vote-
actually your 1 and 2.
What?
What? We should do this, but with your top 50. We all get
That's
to
actually pretty funny.
re-rank
Right,
your
good.
top
Okay,
50.
That's great.
Yeah, that's funny.
That's
I
actually
like
really
that.
fun.
This is, I mean, if Biblios is a no-brainer, this is also a no-brainer for me. I would much
Arboretum
rather
is
play Arboretum.
painful, though, right? Like,
It
are there
is.
times where you wouldn't want to play Arboretum? 'Cause that's how I feel.
I think that's
Yeah,
almost
for sure.
I
No,
think that's almost
that's
what's
fair.
interesting for me is that like Arboretum, it hurts sometimes, man. Like I want to feel
Yeah.
good at the end of like a filler, but like,
with your family.
yeah, exactly.
feel good.
But Arboretum, that's a tough one. I think it's no thanks for me.
No thanks. Fire away.
All right.
Fire away.
Killed his 1 and 2. He thought he had alliances,
just
but he doesn't. Oh
ruining
my gosh.
What little reputation we have.
The Pub Meeple ranking engine gods have given us the battle of the fates. I'm going to call this the battle of, what do we call, like the highlighted, the duel of the night. Biblios in one corner versus Arboretum in the other corner.
Ooh. Well, I feel like Mark knows what that answer is.
I just have to look at my rank. I mean, I think this sounds like, from what you guys have said, that you're going to all pick Biblios, because if
Yeah, I picked
the problem with Arboretum was the difference.
Yeah, I like Biblios a lot, and I think it's actually a pretty solid pick for this category, and fire away on Biblios.
It's also known as the king of the fillers, I'd have you know.
Is it?
best
And
game
yet we
of all
had to
time.
lose to no thanks.
All right, we're back with Blue Lagoon versus For Sale. I will maintain my position that I do not believe Blue Lagoon is a filler game, and For Sale is a quintessential filler game that has been entertaining the masses for more than 10 years. Okay, what can you say about the only true and living Doctor's Blue Lagoon? Well, that hasn't been out for 4 years.
It was the BGB game of 2018 is what one thing you can say about it.
It's so young. He could turn on us, right? We don't know. But we know more about For Sale. I'm locking
I
in
like For Sale a lot.
Fire
I
Away
do like
For
a
Sale.
lot.
It's got to beat out Blue Lagoon for best filler game. I think I might actually even prefer Blue Lagoon, but I'm
Oh,
already
you're
locked in.
that convicted on the.
Oh, I have conviction, Neelan.
But, no, I mean,
if nothing
like
else,
I said, like it was on a knife's edge on whether like I included it on mine. So it would have been my top pick. Like it's Blue Lagoon, fire away.
Blue Lagoon, Fire Away.
yeah, you guys are wrong. All right, startups versus For Sale. Classic battle of America versus Japan. For me, this is a tough one. I think startups is just a little bit harder for people to grasp than For Sale. For Sale has sort of the two halves system that's really cool. I like the setup and wind out. I actually like it in For Sale more than I like it in Biblios specifically. And startups is more of a round-based game. And I would say that the weakness of startups is that round-based anything is usually not as strong as like one and done and getting to the winner. I'll lock in For Sale here as a better filler game. Fire away.
I'm also going to go For Sale.
For Sale for me as well. As much as I love startups, fire away.
Startups versus Splendor.
It's Splendor.
I think it's Splendor too.
I think it's definitely startups, and you guys are crazy. But do you want to hear an argument, or you just?
I would love to hear an argument.
Startups is a better game.
Startups, I think the thing you described earlier is kind of my issue with it. Like it goes awry enough that you have to play multiple games of it sometimes, and like Splendor.
Just get better at the game.
Splendor, I just think is so rewarding, and you like that cascading engine feeling in a game that's that short.
Startups.
It's
It's killing Splendor right
Plastic
now.
Splendor,
Locking it
fire
in.
fire away on
Oh
Splendor.
my. All right. 6 nimmt in one corner versus Zany Penguins in the other. All right. Zany Penguins is a young upstart on this list and deserves to be at the bottom. 6 nimmt is a German classic, right? This has been entertaining German families.
You're throwing
since-
all these criteria that make no sense to me. Age
Well,
of
I don't
publish?
know.
Like,
Yeah. How long have they been around entertaining
Okay.
the masses? This game is from 1994.
how's your
okay?
startups doing?
That was made in
terms of
Japan.
publish?
So they're in the future and in the past. Have you
That's a
seen
whole different
Science I don't think you understand this. Tragedy Looper for a board game reference. I am firing away on 6 nimmt. It's not even close. Neelan, you are going to disappoint me.
No, this is 6 nimmt for me. 6 nimmt is, I don't think, a game that I will ever love, but it's fun and silly. Zany Penguins, again, like I thought it was fun, but not something I'm excited to play again. But I mean, 6 nimmt I would never say no to. Fire away on 6 nimmt.
All right, here we go with the boring roll and right. It's hard because I can't insult it right if I can't even say the name of it, because it'll just all be the dummy instead of the game being the dummy that it is. Twice as Clever versus Zany Penguins.
Twice as clever.
Zany Penguins, Far Away.
I think I'm going to have to go with Twice as Clever. This is about
you
as good.
serious?
Wow,
Wow,
it's
I
about
wasn't
as good as
expecting
roll and
that.
rights get. I mean, Zany Penguins is like,
God.
we had a casual fling, but Twice as Clever. A lot
Kellen,
of
do you
people
want to
love
play
that.
Zany Penguins right now, or do you want to play Twice as Clever right now? Think of that. Are you kidding me?
Fire away.
No, I want
Yay!
I want you. Okay, that's fine. I want you to say the sentence. Hey guys, I want to play Twice as Clever.
Hey, guys.
Oh my God,
I want to play Twice as Clever.
that is a sentence you'll never utter.
Twice as clever, fire away.
Oh my God, travesty.
I want to play Twice as Clever with Dan Hughes and Mike Delisio. No thanks versus Coloretto. Come on, guys. Coloretto is the best filler game. It is all about chameleons. A. It has a theme. B. It doesn't have stupid tiddlywinks like no thanks, Mark. So
C,
come on.
it has hops.
It has hops. People love hops. Coloretto, fire away.
Coloretto, fire away.
Coloretto, fire away.
Oh, we got a consensus. No thanks versus Karuba. All right, Neil, and now I'm going to have to let you down. Karuba, you don't like
I do like Karuba. I could very much be swayed that No Thanks is the better filler game, though. In fact, yeah, I think I would make that. No Thanks is not something that had crossed my mind as I was making the list, but it's excellent, and I think I would definitely concede that to No Thanks.
This is a close one to me. I do like Karuba, but yeah, I think No Thanks is probably my vote. Fire away.
All right, Biblios versus Karuba.
Ooh, definitely.
What do you
Now
got
we
for
get
me, Mark?
serious.
This is definitely Karuba for me, though. I do think I don't want to pretend it's not close, but I like Biblios a lot, but I would definitely much rather play Karuba.
If I was 5, my answer would be Karuba, but I'm not, so it isn't. Fire away, Biblios.
Biblios, fire away, finally.
Arboretum versus Karuba.
Yeah, I think that's still Karuba for me. Arboretum is, I still think I will maintain my previous argument that it's not a game that I'm going to feel buzzed about by the end of it. It's a downer. Fire away on Karuba.
In this question, I am a 5-year-old. I'm locking in on Karuba.
Yeah, when it's convenient. I love it.
When it's convenient, I'm a child. Arboretum versus Istanbul.
Oh, this one I'll give to Arboretum, actually.
Thank you.
So will
I appreciate it.
Arboretum, we're all in it. We don't even need to. We're getting here. Shards of Infinity versus Istanbul.
Shards of Infinity.
Istanbul.
I'm having, you got to convince me that a CCG-like game
Doesn't need to. Just vote
But
for
like, I
Istanbul.
mean, I guess like I would
is a filler.
I would like fight you on CCG like I think it's a dueler in that you're dealing damage, but it's not nearly as rules heavy as something you're imagining. It's not even as rules heavy as Chronicles Eternal of the Throne, that game.
And what time are you filling? It's a 2-player game.
No, it's a 2 to 4 player deck builder. Like in some ways it's a simpler deck builder than Dominion in a lot of ways. Like the card effects are very simple. You're very quickly
what
acquiring
country is Istanbul, or what country is Shards of Infinity set in?
them.
Because I'm going
It's
to
actually
Istanbul.
It's actually set in Istanbul.
God.
Boom, take it.
6 nimmt versus Blue Lagoon. It's got to be 6 nimmt, guys. We got to be taken seriously as a publication, and you guys are
We're
Yeah,
way past
if
that.
we let the Knizia game on the list, then no one will take us seriously.
6 nimmt.
No, it's Blue
Fire
Lagoon.
away. 6 nimmt versus For Sale.
For Sale for me.
For sale.
I'm in on For Sale. It's over. 6 nimmt versus Splendor. That's got to be 6
Splendor
nimmt.
for me.
Splendor.
My God, we're getting close to the end. 6 nimmt versus Startups.
Ooh, startups.
Startups.
Yeah, I think Startups. I think that 6 nimmt works more party-ish if we're blending the two, or if these two are in a ranked duel. You know, like 6 nimmt is Jigglypuff and Startups is Falco.
Yeah, that's what I've always said.
And then they're wave dashing, and Startups wins. Blue Lagoon versus Coloretto. Okay, guys, let's get serious.
Ooh.
I
Coloretto.
think it's Coloretto.
It is Coloretto. Locked in. Fire away.
Fire away.
All right.
Blue Lagoon versus No Thanks.
Blue Lagoon.
I am going to be a holdout and say no thanks, but we are moving on. For Sale versus No Thanks. This is a tough one.
I think for me it would be For Sale.
Yeah, for me it's also for sale.
I think For Sale is just so clever and it's so simple and it's beautiful.
It's also the most Biblios-like of the two.
Splendor versus No Thanks. Gotta be No Thanks.
Splendor.
It's not Splendor. People can't even get the one with the heavy chips that you like rolling around in your hands.
That is true.
anymore.
that does.
Oh, you've appealed to Neil incorrectly.
I would say Splendor with the heavy chips. Definitely Fire away.
That's not an answer. No thanks.
That was
Fire away.
assumed.
Mark,
When I
break this
submitted
tie.
Splendor, I was assuming we were playing with the heavy chips.
Make this tie.
Oh, God, I'm torn. I'm going to say Splendor out of spite because no thanks, beat Biblios. Fire away.
This is
Perfect.
Startups versus No Thanks.
No thanks for me on this one.
Ooh.
I think
would
I picked No
say
Thanks.
Startups, actually. But
There's just this sense that a filler game has broad appeal.
I don't
In
think
my mind.
that's
I
not
know
really
I've made
given
up
for
like
me.
17 different criteria.
Yeah. I don't think that's a criteria for me. But yeah, I think it's Startups.
My issue with startups is that I never really feel like there is like a real winner at the end of any game because of the whole rounds thing. I feel like we always sort of like decide when we want to end a game and we sort of assign a winner at that point based on how long we want to play. And it just doesn't
As
feel...
the kids say, get good, and that's GIT space GUD. And if you need help translating that, let me know. No thanks. I pick no thanks. Startups versus Biblios.
I think this is Biblios for me.
Biblios, far away.
No one wants to play a brown box. I dare you to try to convince
But that's
people
what the
to play
colored dice
this
are for.
to fill time.
That's right.
All right, Biblios is done. Startups versus Karuba.
This is Karuba, Jamaica. Who I want to take you?
I'm going to say startups. It's close, but I'm going to say startups on this one, far away.
Startups, fire away. 6 nimmt versus Karuba.
Karuba is coming back.
I'm going to say... I like 6 nimmt. I'm going to say 6 nimmt.
Yeah, me too. 6 nimmt, fire
More
away.
pro 6 nimmt than most people.
Karuba versus Twice as Clever. So we're now scraping the bottom.
Wow.
Boring versus boring.
For me, not that this is going to really decide it, but it's Twice as Clever for me. Of the two, I think Twice as Clever is definitely my preferred.
I think Twice as Clever definitely is more of a gamer game than Karuba.
Yeah.
So if we're ranking what we'd rather play, it's got to be Twice as Clever over Karuba.
I'm going to say Karuba.
Oh my gosh. Twice as Clever.
It's more fun. I am sort of bored by Twice as
think
Clever.
Karuba is more fun, but I mean, I would still rather play Twice as Clever.
Sure, that's fair.
Karuba versus Zany Penguins.
Karuba.
Who are we going to be known as, Neelan? What are we going to be known as? You want to be known as the people who like Karuba?
Versus Zany Penguins?
Yes,
Yeah, what do
Zany
you
Penguin.
mean? We love animals of all
Zany
kinds.
Penguins
We've always
is a diamond
loved
in the
animals.
rough.
That's always been our number one stance on the podcast.
Zany Penguins is a classic BGB diamond in the rough.
Karuba has you moving through jungles and Mayan temples, seeking treasure.
Zany Penguins.
Zany Penguins.
Fire away. We're getting very close. The game versus Karuba. Gotta be the game.
Yeah. I think it's the
We have a
game.
close one.
The game is also one that I
Yeah, I'll say
hadn't
the game.
considered, but I do like the game a lot.
I think that the game works well with both gamers and non-gamers.
Right.
And not that that's a quintessential criteria because I keep inventing new ones here, but I do think it is a very fun one to try to play with a group of gamers who are min-maxing the out of it. And then it's also fun just playing with family members who kind of go, oh, well, who knows what's going to
Right.
happen now? And you just kind of like see it happen as a more organized co-op-y 6 nimmt, almost like what's going to happen when I play this
Yeah,
card.
I think the game it falls into the category of I want to show it to people. Like it's novel and neat. And yeah, I think the game's
version
great.
with Quanchai Moria
Yeah,
art.
definitely.
It's quite good. The game.
The game.
All right. It's done.
Oh,
We have
okay.
the list.
Countdown from the bottom to the top.
Did you hear that?
Yeah,
I'll start a drum roll.
that was.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, now we have a real drum. In last place, coming at us from a country that is not Istanbul, Shards of Infinity.
rough.
14, Istanbul. 13, Arboretum. 12, Karuba. 11, The Game. 10, Zany Penguins. 9, Twice as Clever. 8th place, 6 nimmt. Well, we missed that one up. 7, Startups. 6, Biblios. So that made it higher,
Higher
Mark.
than I expected from you guys.
5, No Thanks.
Okay.
4, Splendor. Rounding out the top 3. 3rd place, best filler game of all time. This is, and you can't argue with this, For Sale.
Great.
Okay.
Number 2, and you can't argue with this because it's not a filler game. Blue Lagoon by
Oh,
the Dr.
the
Ryan
Doctor.
Wikipedia.
The Doctor
And
of
the
Murder.
number 1 filler game, We Are Friends of the Chameleon, Coloretto, coming in at the best filler
I
game.
think that's exactly right.
Wow. I think that's...
There's some small problems
Sort
with
of
this
right.
list.
I mean, the top
And I
three,
will remember-
I think, super solid.
Mark, what you did to me.
What did I do to you?
You screwed me.
When did I do that?
I don't know, somewhere around the
Yeah.
mid-bend.
Feeling is mutual.
So, I think you could not go wrong with any of these games. Please join the Board Game Barrage Discord at boardgamebarrage.com/Discord to tell us what your favorite filler games are and argue with us about what even a filler game is and why they're synonymous with appetizers and not filling time with your, I don't know. Anyway, That's going to do it. Thank you so much, as always, to Heart Society Music for letting us use their song What's on Your Mind Kid from their album Wake the Queens. Mark, what are you looking forward to this week? Blast from the past.
I'm looking forward to the math trade, which I finally set up after months of talking about it. So if you go to our Discord at boardgamebarrage.com/Discord and join the math trade channel, there are a couple of pinned messages there that will lead you to joining the math trade and learning more about it. And this is going to be a very beginner friendly. Like if you haven't done math trades and you're curious, we're going to try to make it as easy to follow and as sort of gentle as possible. If anybody makes big mistakes in terms of inputting their trades, we're going to make sure that those are removed before we run the trade. So this will be a very good first math trade for anybody interested. A couple of things. It is US only, just because postage internationally is rough. And it is also a shipping trade, speaking of postage. So just be aware that if you're entering the math trade, this is going to be a situation where you're going to have to be mailing your games and getting games in the mail. So if those two caveats aren't problems, then I would really encourage you to join the first ever Board Game Barrage math trade.
It's so much fun, even just as an activity. It's a great way to get new games and get rid of old ones. I would definitely encourage you to take part if you can.
It's a board game Christmas in the middle of the year. You wake up, you look at the list of results, and it's like you got your little Christmas presents.
Santa is red. I'll remind all of our listeners. A jolly red man.
But he bleeds green.
Cash.
All right. So long, friends.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I'm in such a mood, Neelan, because I wanted to ask you about how big your table was.
Uh-huh.
And then when you said that it was small, I would say, well, if you had someone else in your life, you couldn't leave the game out on your table. And I'm like, why would I say that? And then I was sitting there thinking, have they ever made a joke like that to me? And the answer is, I don't think so.
No, I don't think so.
Have we ever been mean to you? No, Kellen.
Are you
I love
kidding?
that 2 years in, you're realizing this.
You've been mean to me.